Well, all right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends and colleagues from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining our Gender Speaker Series. My name is Sophia. I am co-chaired by my colleague, Caroline, who is based in Zambia. She is joining momentarily. So we want to welcome you to this wonderful speaker series. We have very interesting topics, as you already know, and also a wonderful colleague of us with a rich experience in designing and implementing gender programming, specifically gender transformative initiative and projects. But before we start up, I'd like to invite Sonia to open us with a word of prayer and then with a brief introduction about the gender TL. Sonia, to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Pete, if it's okay with you, I'll flip that just to say this is a real delight for the GTLL to be doing this. Our learning labs, we just had another webinar before we started here, are meant to really bring us closer together as interested ADRA people in this topic, technical people, and really for us to be able to collaborate with one another. And so we hope this is the first of several speaker series. And thank you to Maddie for your brilliance and willingness to lead us through this. So I will start us off with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this space, for colleagues from across the world to connect, to share, to learn, to collaborate with one another. We do this for the good of your work. Please be with us now as we learn with Maddie, be with Maddie, and all the silent prayers of those in attendance. In your name we pray. Amen. Over to you, Sophie.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia, for your prayer and for your warm introductions about this very important speaker series. We wanted to also introduce a little bit of the layout of today's speaker series. Definitely, you will hear from our wonderful colleague, which I will introduce in a moment. But as we will be presenting, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. Your name and where you come from, is that possible, or which country you're representing, so we know and how appreciative we are for all your participation. The PowerPoint presentation will be about 20-ish, I will say 20-25 minutes. We will send you the slides afterwards, so please stay tuned for the slides. And also, as I want to reiterate, this is a safe space. We all working together to promote, love, justice, and compassion. So please be assured that this is a very safe space. So we welcome all comments, suggestions, all inputs will be very, very important. Other than that, I would like to also introduce my colleague, a wonderful friend of mine with ADRA Canada as the Gender Equality Advisors. Mahider or Maddie Yeshaw, wonderful and colleague with 10 years experiences in this area, and we're very pleased for her to be stepping in as the first speaker in this very important topic. So Maddie, floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to this Gender TLL webinar. My name is Mahider, and I'm the Gender Equality Advisor for ADRA Canada. In this presentation, I'll be talking about the gender transformative approach, an approach where a growing number of organizations are adopting in their programs and projects. And many people have expressed an interest in this topic during the survey conducted by the team. I will be also sharing ADRA Canada's and supported projects experience of designing and implementing a gender transformative approach. And I trust this learning platform is going to be bidirectional because I'm sharing while also expecting to learn from the experience of the participants. My presentation is structured to cover few basic concepts of gender equality programming, and I will start by briefly introduce about the gender equality continuum, and then after that I will talk about the gender transformative approach, discussing what gender transformative approach means, the rationale behind implementing gender transformative approach, as well as how we can implement, or what does architect look like in implementing a gender transformative approach, specifically in development projects. And at the end, I'll share our experience in the experience that our supported projects had in terms of designing and implementing gender transformative approach. And then at the end, I will briefly discuss the challenges our partners are facing in implementing GTA and some recommendations for future programming. So before digging into the gender transformative approach, let me first discuss the gender equality continuum to see where the gender transformative approach fits into this gender equality integration continuum. So the gender integration continuum is a tool for designers or for project implementers or for project managers to use in planning how to integrate gender into their programs and policies. As a planning framework, we can use this gender equality continuum to determine where our program sits in the first place and how to design and plan interventions that moves across this continuum from the exploitative to the gender transformative approach, where the goal is to achieve gender equality. The gender equality continuum, as you can see, lists a series of gender equality programming: exploitative, accommodative, and transformative. As you can see, the first two in the sequence, that is the gender unequal and the gender blind or the gender neutral programs, are called exploitative, because these gender programs intentionally or unintentionally reinforce or take advantage of gender inequalities and stereotypes in pursuit of project outcomes. This approach, again, knowingly or unknowingly exacerbates inequalities. They are not informed by a gender analysis. As you can see, a gender analysis is the first step in mainstreaming gender in any program and policy, but these two programs, the exploitative programs, they don't do any gender analysis at the beginning of the project design. So these programs in general are harmful and can undermine the objective of the program in the long run. The second in the continuum are called gender accommodative programs or policies, that are the gender aware and the gender responsive programs. This programming acknowledges and works around gender differences and inequalities to achieve program objectives. Although this approach may result in short-term benefits and the realization of outcomes, it does not attempt to reduce gender inequalities or gender systems that contribute to the difference in the inequality. One example of gender accommodative or gender responsive programming would be a gender programming for emergency projects or disaster risk management. In those kinds of projects, we implement gender responsive programming because given the urgency as well as the short period of time we have in conflicts, we only attempted to address immediate needs like shelter, like evacuation or food assistance. We don't have that luxury time to affect gender norms. So that's one example. The last one in the continuum is a gender transformative programming. This programming includes policies and programs that seeks to transform gender relations to promote gender equality. In addition to providing services like education, health, or water and sanitation, this programming go further, do deeper analysis on the root cause of gender inequalities and works to transform harmful gender roles and norms and power relations. So for this reason, we say gender transformative is an effective programming to transform gender relations and bring about longer lasting transformation. Now let's talk about gender transformative approach or programming in a little bit of depth. So what's gender transformative approach, or we sometimes call it GTA? So GTA seeks to transform gender relations to promote gender equality by intentionally examining the root cause of inequalities and power relations between men and women at different levels. Here, the focus goes beyond improving the condition of women and goes beyond to change the position of the women and girls in that community. For example, through the provision of water and sanitation, we can improve the condition of the women. By making services available to them, we can improve their condition. But gender transformative approach goes beyond that. It goes beyond that and tries to transform gender roles, try to transform the position and the value of the woman in that community. It also aims to foster more equitable gender relations at different levels, at the household level, at the community and organizational level, by facilitating dialogues, by trying to bring behavioral change at multiple levels. So GTA, as I said, uses participatory and experiential learning methodologies, and also recognize the intersectional identities of the women, because when we say women, it's not a homogeneous group. Under the women, we find women with disabilities, we find female health households, we find elderly women. So with these intersectional identities, the form of discrimination and stereotypes gets worse. So we also work explicitly with men and boys as allies in gender transformative approach. So in the gender transformative approach, gender analysis is central to program design. As you know, gender assessment is very important to know the situation of the men and women, boys and girls in that community. So gender transformative programming will be based on findings of a gender analysis or a gender assessment. It also seeks to improve the position and value of girls and women in the community. It also focuses on empowering women, as well as explicitly work with men and boys to promote gender equality. In gender transformative programming, all data are disaggregated by sex, age, and work possibly by disability. And these programs, as I've been trying to say, operate at different levels, following the socio-ecological model to development. So it looks like the intersection between the individual, the community, as well as the institutional levels, to create enabling environment to transform gender roles and norms at specific community. So why do we want to move to gender transformative approach, and what's the rationale behind? Because through implementing gender transformative approach, we'll be able to do role and responsibility redistribution between men and women in a specific community. Equitable distribution of roles, as you know, will reduce women's burden of unpaid care work and provide women more time to be educated, to earn money, to get into other economic opportunities, and also to engage in other economic and public activities. So GTA makes a deeper analysis of norms around roles and responsibilities of men and women. GTA also aims to advance equal or equitable access and control over resources for men and women. Here, resource could be cash, credit, information, technology, mobility, or any basic services. And also try to see what are the blockages of resources for men and women in that particular community. Again, gender transformative approach help us to improve decision-making power of men and women, both at the household and at the community, as well as at the institution level. For example, at the household level, decision-making for women mean making decisions around resource utilization, or it can mean distribution of food, or it can mean family planning or SRHR. So through implementing gender transformative approach, we will be able to create enabling environment for women to make decisions at the household level. And again, at the community level, decisions for women could be to decide to attend community events, ability to raise voices and to be heard, and taking leadership positions in community forums and the like. So gender transformative approach also analyzes or examines questions and transforms rigid gender and social norms. For example, what does the perception or the norm look like around gender-based violence? What does the community's understanding of early forced marriage or SRHR? So it helps us to dig deeper into these social cultural norms, so that to come up with a means to address those inequalities at the community level. So how are we going to do it? So we implement gender transformative approach, or GTA, aspire changes at different levels, following again the socio-ecological model that consider the complex interplay between individuals, community, and institutions for a long-lasting and transformative change. GTA works directly with women and girls to build their personal as well as collective capacities to empower them across pillars of gender equality and enhance their agency. Here, agency means the ability to define and act on goals, make decisions that matters to them, and participate in the economy and public life free from any violence or coercion. So first, we work at the individual level, building the capacity of women, strength by, it could be through conducting a targeted action or mainstreamed action, so that we can implement, we can empower women by strengthening their skills, their self-confidence, their self-esteem, and so on, so that they'll have that capacity to live their lives the way they want. We also work, GTA also work at the family and community level. The level of family is critical, especially to address some of the root causes. And if you want to redistribute role, enhance decision-making and participation, or if you want to change norms, it's really important to work with the community themselves and specifically engaging men and boys. And GTA also works at the policy and institutional levels to make the services accessible and also to make policies addressing particular challenges of men, boys, girls, and women, boys, girls, and men using gender analysis or participation of women and girls in that particular community. So this figure will summarize what I've been discussing in the previous slides. So it brings about, to bring about a meaningful transformation requires the engagement of the right holders, who are the women and the girls in this case. So the importance of increasing their agency should be highlighted, and there are primary duty bearers, who are organizations or agencies that are responsible to fulfill the rights of the right holders or the community, so that they can bring about gender responsive service delivery policies at the institutional level. And there are also the moral duty bearers that's engaging men and boys. So the interplay of these three factors is really important to bring about meaningful gender transformation in a particular community. Now, let's see how GTA is being translated into practice by ADRA Canada and its implementing partners. So as I've been trying to say, gender analysis is the starting point of our gender transformative programs. As you know, gender analysis provides all the necessary data, information about the situation of men, women, boys, and girls, their specific needs, their constraints, their challenges, as well as their capacities, right? So our gender transformative approach is solely based on our gender analysis. And we also build the individual and collective agency of women, girls, and other marginalized groups like people with disabilities through strengthening their knowledge, confidence, and decision-making capacities. Yeah, we do this by developing the critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and build their sense of personal worth and agency. We also work at the community level by mobilizing the community, by conducting continuous education through effective communication strategies. We usually work with the men and women gender champions. So we select gender champions from the community, both men and women, and then we train them with the necessary gender equal values so that they will go back to the community and influence the community's understanding of what it means to be a gender equal community. So during community mobilization, we use a rights-based approach, an inclusive approach, and also participatory approach to build a rapport, to build trust, and to clarify perceptions and foster change towards promoting positive gender norms. As I've been trying to say, men and boys are also critical stakeholders of our supported projects and programs. We engage men and boys as supporters to women empowerment and also allies to the fight against gender-based violence. We use methodologies to help men and boys to identify negative masculine features and encourage them to be chains of agents to advance gender equality in that particular community. We also promote multi-sectoral and holistic approach to gender transformative programming. All our partners are encouraged to collaborate with local authorities or local women rights organizations and other stakeholders and agencies in that project area. For example, in our GVV initiatives, our partners collaborate with the sectors like education, economic empowerment, health, legal, and so on, to provide referral services to our victims as part of our protection work. So we really encourage multi-sectoral actions and efforts in our projects. We also support and encourage our partners to engage in local level advocacy to bring about changes in local laws, and we see a lot of positive outcomes regards to this. There are a lot of success stories, for example, in banning FGM, in banning early child forced marriage, and reducing intimate partner violence at the community level. So these are some of the approaches that we are using in our projects. Just to give you some tangible lessons from some of our projects. ADRA Canada supports gender transformative development projects in various parts of the world in partnership with our ADRA offices all over the globe. So one of these projects is a climate adaptation project that we're implementing in Mozambique. So the project builds the capacity of the local women so that they will be active agents of change in climate adaptation initiatives. In this project, the project selected women DRM groups, that's disaster risk management groups, and we provide them very good trainings so that they will be active agents in disaster preparedness, response, and recovery efforts. Not only this build their capacity and their agency, but this opens a window of opportunity to transform their positions in the community. Now, these women are leaders in the community and becoming role models for other women and girls in that community. The other fascinating project is our Together project. Together, the 6-year SRHR project that's implemented in 4 countries: Cambodia, Kenya, Philippines, and Uganda. The project worked at different levels to increase SRHR for women and girls. And one effective approach the project employs is critical community level education. So again, men and women gender equality champions who are dedicated to breaking gender barriers to SRHR and challenging gender stereotypes through their work in communities. So we see a lot of positive outcomes. The other interesting project that we are implementing is agriculture and livelihood project in Kenya, and specifically in the Turkana community. So this project employs different gender transformative approaches to advance gender equality as well as mitigate and respond to gender-based violence and the SRHR in order to reduce and mitigate such incidents in that community. And one of the strategies found effective in this project is tackling gender norms by working directly with school clubs, boys and girls school clubs. So these children get trained in GBV, they get trained in harmful traditions, attitudes and attitudes and perceptions. So these children expand key gender and GBV message to their parents, going back home, to their siblings, to their parents, and to the entire community, so that we can have a transformative change at the community level. And the teachers and the students influenced also local laws by working in partnership with the local authorities. So now in that area, early forced marriage is banned, and now it's illegal, and girls are getting back to school even after marriage and having kids. So these are some of the very productive outcomes of gender transformative approach. The other also interesting project that we are implementing in Sudan is a gender transformative wash and protection project. Our gender analysis indicated that the targeted community has a very high prevalence of gender-based violence and extremely inadequate service to respond to or prevent gender-based violence. So we address these challenges working through different levels. We work with girls, we work with women, we work with men, we do case management. We also organize and train community level protection networks. And one of the very productive approach that we used is engaging religious leaders, such as imams and sheikhs, to promote positive masculine behaviors and to be a role model themselves. So religious leaders, as a moral bearers, shape social norms and expectations at the community level, and they really influence how the community should behave and act in that particular community. So we see a lot of reduction in incidents of gender-based violence in that community. And as I said, the local authorities now ban child marriage and FGM, which was really common in that community. And also our projects work engaging men and boys as major stakeholders. So one example could be our nutrition project that we are implementing in Cambodia, Mongolia, Laos, and Nepal. So so in order to transform we work social and gender norms. We work to reduce or to impact the patriarchy and the gender, the inequalities in those communities by engaging men. So in these projects, men are trained and encouraged to assume feminine duties or feminine tasks like taking care of a child, keeping up with the hygiene, water collection, gardening, reinforcing hygiene practice at the family level. So men are being seen very interested to take part at the household level to contribute what they can do at the household level, and this has implication for the amount of time women have for resting when they are pregnant, as well as they will have a lot of time to nurse their kids in that community. So these are some of the examples and the lessons that we get from our supported projects, and I hope you find them really interesting. So what are some of the challenges and recommendations in implementing gender transformative approach? The first challenge that we usually face is the extended timeline for social norm change. As you know, gender norms have been there and perpetuated in the community for a long period of time. So it's really hard to tackle overnight or through in a very short period of time. So what we have to do just to get excited with the small or the baby steps and to persist and not to give up. To give up on the process and to persist in overcoming setbacks. Sometimes we also face problems in measuring and reporting GTA outcomes because gender perceptions, attitudes, and relations often happens really low and they're hard to quantify them. So we used participatory techniques along qualitative indicators to measure gender transformative outcomes in our development programming. The other challenge we are facing is the political context and the dynamics, specifically in some of conservative Islamic countries. It's really hard to talk about gender responsive and gender transformative programming. The authorities came up with very rigid rules not to talk about gender, because gender transformative approach by nature it's also political because it works at different layers. So there should be a very critical impact on the feasibility of gender transformative programming. So we should always consider the do not harm principle to gender equality integration. And in order to tackle these challenges, now we are working through a consultant to bring about really a very religious or faith-sensitive and context-specific gender transformative training tools. The other challenge we face is men who are starting acting in a gender responsive and gender sensitive will get ridiculed by the community for not conforming to existing gender norms and pushbacks. Sometimes they are considered as being weak, sometimes they are being called by the community members and other men. So it's really important to think through the implication and the risks for individuals when they return to their communities. Yeah, so these are some of this is what I would like to share in terms of gender transformative approach, as well as our experience as Canada, as well as our implementing partners. And now I think we'll open the floor for questions, discussions, and sharing of similar experiences. Back to you, Sophie. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, friends and colleagues, for your participating with us as Maddie is presenting. There are two questions come up to me, and those questions, one is about during emergency, and the one is the general questions. But the question is, Maddie, what are best practices that you've seen to be very successful in terms of increased self-reliance and resilience to shock and stress among women during emergencies? That is the first questions. It's basically what are some examples or best practices you can elaborate more about how we can increase self-reliance, especially the resilience to shock and stress for women during emergency. The second question would be, we know that in working with elders and some religious leaders, sometimes we may end up reproducing power imbalance. So a question would be, how should we work with these elders or religious leaders in a way to avoid reproducing more power to them? These two questions. And other colleagues, please write down your comments or questions in the chat box. And if we don't have the questions in the chat box, we welcome also your raised hand so that we can hear from you. So Maddie, to you, thank you.
Thank you. In terms of your first question on best practices in emergency projects, as I've been trying to mention, in emergencies, we don't implement gender transformative approach because we have only little time. Like most of our emergency projects last maybe for 6 months, 9 months, and max to a year time. So we don't have that luxury to do a gender transformative approach and to use those different approaches that we've been using. So at the emergency project, what we do is to implement gender responsive programming in addressing immediate needs for men, women, and boys and girls. For example, for women, this could be making, for example, food distribution accessible for the women, so that we can decrease their stress, right? It also means to have services accessible for them, to make the shelter, to make evacuations accessible for them, to provide them with a safe space, and also to have a gender referral, GBV referral mechanisms for them in case of a gender-based violence, because gender-based violence exacerbates during emergencies. So that's one of the things that we are trying to do. It doesn't mean that we don't engage women. We engage women starting from the consultation level, but the level doesn't go into affecting those gender norms in those communities. So it's through providing accessible services and engaging women, and also taking efforts to mitigate and prevent gender-based violence. This is what we've been doing in the emergency projects. In terms of working, sorry, yes, Sophia. In terms of working with religious leaders, yes, we work with religious leaders. We work with the elderly because we trust in their role of influencing the community. But in order to avoid those kinds of things, we don't let them go by themselves. We train them, and they work closely with, for example, in terms of gender-based violence, they work closely with psychosocial support workers of those projects. So we will gauge them, we will mentor them, we will lead them, and we also make monitoring to see how they are doing, what are some of their challenges, and also to provide support in that area.
Thank you, Maddie. It's wonderful. Another question, I think this is from Zimbabwe. I can't say ZIM. The question is, how do we end child marriage using gender transformative approach?
Okay, please hold on. Sophia, go. Please turn off the TV for me. Yeah, go take the phone. Turn it off. Sorry, my daughter is home today.
Maddie, she is adorable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So child marriage, as I said, in gender transformative approach, we work at different levels. We work with the women themselves, the girls themselves. We work at the community level to influence gender norms. We work with men, and we also work at the institutional level. So we work at the different levels to affect change, right? So for example, we empower the girls, right? We let them know that what their rights are. So we empower them, we give them, we build their capacity of critical thinking, realization of rights, and so on. We also work at the community and at the family level to tackle norms around early forced marriage, right? In many communities, early forced marriage is something common, something that's implemented by those traditional communities. So working only with women will not solve the problem. So we have to go to the other layer, which is the community, the duty bearer that I've been mentioning. And we also work with the local authorities to affect policies, right? For example, there are local laws that define the marriage age of girls. So we work with them to change their rules, and we have really positive outcomes in terms of that. So it requires working at different levels using participatory, inclusive, and a human rights-based approach.
Thank you. This is very key as we look at your slide. Those three levels lay out very, very clearly. And thank you for the response. And thank you to those colleagues who wrote down their comments in the chat box. We have another questions coming up. In society that are highly patriarchal, how can you get men to support women and girls?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. You know, men are not born to be aggressive. It's how they are raised, right? It's how the community raised them. It's the character and the expectation that the community has towards them, right? So it's really important first to work with them, to help them identify positive masculinity features and what it means to be a very good husband, what it means to be a very good father, a very good brother, right? So it's really important to work them through these gender norms and barriers, and to clarify the benefits of gender equality. The benefits of gender equality is not only for women, it's not only for men, but it's for the whole household, for the whole community, right? So to have a happier household, to have a happier community, a productive community, the men has to change. As I said, the change doesn't come overnight. It really needs working with them, working the work with them, right? Yeah, so that's really important. And gender equality values starts from the early age, the early stage. So that's really important to work with voice, so that we can shape, you know, how they feel, how they think about their masculinities. And we see men are getting engaged very interestingly. They are very interested. They are really interested to learn how they can support their women, to empower women. They are also eager to learn how they can be allies in the fight against gender-based violence. So working with them is really critical in addressing those gender norms and social expectations behind their negative masculine behaviors.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. I think on that point, Mahider, if I may add a specific example I came across in one of our countries. Initially, the men refused to engage in one of the projects, saying that your project is women-centered. What about the men? I don't like your ideas about gender equality. I don't like this. I can't let my wife work with your project. So we re-strategize engagement with men. So, okay, so what would you like? And then after that, we realized that they didn't like the word gender equality, but they like family happiness, like the way you frame around how do we make sure that the family is prosperous through engagements with men and boys, and definitely, hopefully shift some of the power dynamics in the families. So we changed the strategy. We're not using gender equality, we're using family happiness. And we saw an increase in men's engagement. So my key takeaway in these important conversations, change the vocabularies. If it doesn't work, be a little bit creative in shifting the way we frame the context by changing, if we need to, changing the vocabulary. Of course, hopefully that will not eliminate the original concepts about what we wanted to achieve. So spot on. Thank you, Maddie, for that great example. And when you ended about the changes of behavior. And we have another question. How do we keep staff morale high when we observe or they observe resistance to gender transformative efforts in their project?
Yeah, I think it's really important to inform the staff that gender transformation doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of time to see change. You might not even see it at the project's lifetime, life cycle. It starts baby steps very slowly because gender norms have been there for centuries. They have been there for generations. So one project cannot bring about the desired change. So it's really important to focus on the process, to appreciate small changes, and as well as to learn from existing approach that other organizations are also implementing in that community. So it's not automatic. And gender transformative change doesn't happen linearly, right? It happens in different directions. So that's what makes it really important to focus on the process and to inform the staff. This cannot be changed in short period of time. It's a goal, right? Gender equality is a goal, and it cannot be achieved over time. It needs time, it needs process, it needs efforts, it needs the collaboration of different communities, like the community, institutions, policies. It is a combination of different layers of interest, and so yeah, that's how I would like to encourage our projects, people, not to give up on gender transformative approach.
Absolutely, not to give up on gender transformative approach because it's a lengthy process. It cannot be achieved overnight, but it is possible that with the good teamwork, we can achieve that. So thank you, Maddie. This is very important key takeaway. Our colleagues raise hand. I don't see any comments on the chat box. Let's go to John. John, please.
Hey, hello. I'm John from Adra, South Sudan.
Hi, John.
Well, I'm glad to be part of the lecture, and it is quite inspiring and transformative, you know, as I can take it already. I just have two questions to ask. For example, whether we have maybe let me say in Adra family or in-house gender transformative or gender and inclusivity strategy that actually each of us can tap into. That is one or two. And then the second one, whether we have a human resource that, for example, let me use Adra South Sudan, should we like to have someone to give also orientation or training for that matter, whether we have the human resource. I know our sister is already there, and but it will be nice to know from the wide spectrum of the organization. Thank you.
To you, Maddie. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, I think ADRA Canada, we have our gender equality policy, but we are now using ADRA International Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Policy. So I think that can be shared as easily. I think Imad is sharing the link. So you can tap into that resource. In terms of human resources, I can talk for ADRA Canada. We have 3 gender equality advisors at ADRA Canada. So one of our role and responsibilities is just to support our implementing partners to implement gender responsive and gender transformative programming. So continuous capacity building, so continuous monitoring. So we have that resource at home. We are also encouraging partner programs to have a gender specialist in the project. It's really important. We can see the difference of projects with gender specialists and without a gender specialist. So it's really important to think about starting from the proposal development stage. It's important to include a gender focal point or a gender specialist and have a budget for that. So this is what I can say in terms of human resource. But as you said, it's really important to capacitate the implementing partner staff on how to implement gender responsive and gender transformative programming. Otherwise, it's really hard to see those outcomes we're anticipating to see.
Good. Thank you, John. Thank you, Maddie. Well, we go to Elisa and then we come to the question in the box. Elisa, thank you. Please.
You are muted, Elisa.
Hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
So thanks a lot for this opportunity. It's always great to hear from other colleagues and other countries where we have gender transformative. In Lebanon, we don't have gender transformative, I mean, activities for a period of time, but we have the GE tools to be applied in Lebanon. Just one thing to add to what Soap was saying about how to work on the wording in order for men to understand and to accept this. So moving from gender equality to family happiness, it's correct. Actually, we had our gender focus group discussion back to April, when one question was asked to the men group for the young adults and for the older adults, where they said that no, they don't really endorse their women to pursue their education. Yet, when we ask them if they have a diploma and so on, so they were welcoming for this for two reasons. First, because the image of the family will be different. So the woman has a degree, has a diploma. So the image of the family and the happiness, if we can say between quotation marks, is there. And secondly, which is not really, I mean, it's an opinion. So for them, it will generate more money. So in both cases, they see it a good way. So really, whenever you go across how they are thinking and how we have to address the questions, this is a key way of getting the data and getting the accurate information and how for them to accept and to endorse. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you for the comment. It was no question, it's a comment, right? Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Another question, Madi, you know, all of us has a social media, either Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. How do we use social media for gender project? Can you give some examples, if any? Thank you.
Sure. Now we are living in the era of social media, and we have to tap into this great opportunity. So in many of our projects, we work with the local media. We work with the local media to transmit key gender equality and key gender transformative messages, and it really works wonders because it has a wider outreach. And because we also use a radio that almost everybody has in the community. So one good example would be our project in Mozambique. So we use the local media several times, and it brings a lot of positive outcomes. So we can use all the social medias that are accessible to the community. But first we have to also map out what kind of medias are available at the community level. Now everybody has a phone, so that we can use different a message, for example, in terms of gender-based violence. When we celebrate the 16 days of gender-based violence, we use different social medias to transfer those messages into the communities, and it's really a key. It's really key to bring about attitudinal and behavioral change. So we make sure that we tap into that opportunity in our projects.
Wonderful, Mary. Thank you. We have 3 minutes to go before we open for the, not open, we will have a wrap up. So in the next 3 minutes, we definitely want to see if you have any burning questions, any other comments. We definitely welcome to hear from you. This is a safe space. If you're not willing to share in this chat box, you can message me directly. Happy to share to Maddie.
I am from Trinidad and Tobago. I wanted to ask the question of how do you motivate men in strong patriarchal societies to support the women and girls, because I know that is an issue, especially among Muslim societies. How do you get that transformation going in families like that, where women and girls really need to be supported?
That's a very interesting point. I also mentioned this as the challenge that we are facing. For example, in Yemen, we are facing great challenge in terms of conducting not gender transformative but gender responsive. We face a real challenge from the local authorities, talking about gender equality. All those big words are not allowed at all. So what we are trying to do is just to work in a very phase sensitive and context specific tools. For example, we use the Quran, which is a holy book for the Muslim, as a base to encourage gender equal perceptions and attitudes, because in the Quran there are a lot of verses that encourage roles and equal roles and responsibilities. There are different verses that encourage joint decision making. There are different verses in the Quran that encourage participation, access to resource. All those gender dimensions, believe it or not, they are in the Quran. So we used those methods from the Quran and through the imams and the sheikhs in a very sensitive way, in a do not harm way. That's how we are pushing gender responsive programming little by little, in a way that doesn't inflict harm for the women and the girls. And as I said, this is an area that we want to work more. And now we are working with a consultant to get a tool, a very Islamic sensitive tool. And that I will promise to share that to this team, that resource. So yeah, we are using a very phase-based and context-specific tools to address those challenges.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Micah. Thank you, Maddie, for that final comments about the tool. Definitely, we love to read those tools, and I would love to get a copy as well.
Sure.
Friends and colleagues, we're just about time. Oh, Sonia has raised her hand. Sonia, how could we miss you? Please.
No. It's just a quick, I want to take the opportunity that we have with a room full of people to just ask if there are any topics that you all think would be useful, interesting to know more about. Please do send them through so people and Maddie, Shanda, myself will put our emails here, but we would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. That's wonderful. Yes, topics are welcome, definitely. We are running out of time. We have 5 minutes to go. So we'll take this opportunity to wrap up. But before I invite my colleagues to come on and to share the summary, I just want to say that this is the beginning of our conversations. You can always reach out to us for more questions. And Maddie definitely will be happy to answer your questions. And if we happen to go through the chat again, if we miss any of your questions, we will make sure to respond to your questions after. I hope that is okay with everyone. Other than that, I'm so pleased to invite my colleague, Caroline from Mahider, Zambia, to share with us the key highlight of today's conversation. Caroline, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline from Mahider, Zambia, and I'll just run us quickly through a summary of what we have shared this afternoon. So we were looking at gender transformative approaches, and we basically looked at 4 items. We looked at the gender equality continuum, we looked at gender transformative approaches, and then we also looked at ADRA Canada's experience, as well as some of the challenges that they have and experiences they have. And so briefly on the gender equality continuum, I think we basically looked at it as a tool that we use for implementers of projects and managers to integrate gender issues into their programming or policies. And so this continuum basically has 3 elements. So in the continuum, you have the aspect of exploitation, which looks at gender inequality and gender blindness. Then you also have the other element that is looking at accommodation, and this looks at issues of gender awareness and also gender responsiveness, either in programming or in policies. And then the third element is basically gender transformative approaches, which basically address the causes of gender inequalities. So those were the 3 major elements. And then we delved into gender transformative approaches themselves. And we basically looked at gender transformative approaches as an approach that basically looks at inequalities and then tries to shift the harmful gender practices or norms or beliefs. So basically that's what GTL is all about. And we also discussed that central to this approach is the aspect of gender analysis, because with gender analysis, then we'll be able to understand the context, because the contexts are different. So even as we want to undertake this process, we need to also understand the context. And it's the gender analysis that will allow us to do that. Then we also looked at why is it important for us to have or to adopt gender transformative processes. And we basically looked at, I think, 4 key aspects that make it necessary for us to consider gender transformative approaches in our programming. And the first one we looked at is the aspect of role redistribution, because we know that in most of our settings, there's uneven distribution of roles. And so GTA allows us to examine these roles and see how do we redistribute them. And then we look at the control of resources. We know there's a lot of inequality when it comes to resource accessibility between men and women. And then we also looked at the aspect of improved decision-making power between men and women, because this is also one of the challenges when we look at issues of inequality. Then lastly, we looked at the aspect of social and gender norms, that with GTA, we are able to bring about change in some of the rigid and inflexible social norms. And then we also looked at some of the issues that come as a result of us applying GTA. So we looked at issues of increasing gender empowerment for men and for women and girls across all dimensions, either be decision-making or access to resources. And then we also looked at the aspect of family and community, where we bring in both men and women, boys and girls to participate. Like that, we are able to provide the needed support to the women and the girls. And then finally, we looked at Canada's experience. And I think they did share to say there are about 6 issues they shared in terms of the experience. I think one of them we've already discussed, the issue of gender analysis, that it's important to undertake it. And then also with GTA, we are able to enhance women and girls' agency, as well as their skills, as far as being agents of transformative agenda is concerned. Then we also looked at the issues of mobilizing resources, that with gender transformative approaches, we're able to mobilize communities so that they are able to also appreciate why it's important to have this balance between men and women. And then we looked at the issue of engagement of men and boys in gender equality. I think there have been some questions coming from the team to say, so then how do we involve boys and men, and how do we deal with the challenges that come with the attitude of men when it comes to dealing with issues of gender? Yeah, and then they also shared the issue of why it's important to have a multi-sectoral approach, because with that approach, then we are bringing in the different actors so that they are able to buy into why it is important for us to have the participation of both men and women in our programs. And we looked at also the aspect of policy advocacy with probably the local authorities, because we know these are duty bearers. And if we are to actually get people to influence, these are the people that we also need to target, because they have a lot of influence in their setups. And then we also had ADRA Canada also sharing just with us the different projects that they are implementing and how those projects are actually helping them to address the issues of gender inequalities. And finally, we looked at the challenges also that come with the GTA itself. It's a good approach, but then its implementation also comes with its own challenges. And among the challenges, I think, are issues of time, because change is a process. And so you cannot see the results immediately. So that is one of the challenges. And then also the issues of how do we measure the change itself? How do we measure the outcomes of GTA? It's quite complex, and this is one of the major challenges because mostly the processes that we use are participatory in nature, they are qualitative, and like any other qualitative process, it's a bit difficult to measure the outcomes. And then the issues of context in terms of politics or religion, they are also one of those major challenges that we face. And then when we talk about bringing men on board, well, this is very critical. One of the challenges is that the men that begin to champion this cause are also ridiculed because, you know, we come from patriarchal societies. And so when men begin to take the lead to advocate for the need for equality, most societies begin to ridicule such men. So those are some of the challenges. And we then concluded with a session on the questions and the answers. And I think we have received quite a good number of questions, which have actually helped to enhance today's discussions. So yeah, that's what we have covered this afternoon. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Caroline, for very detailed summaries. Very, very well taken. So thank you so much. We definitely will share the notes with all of us. I know we're going to end very soon, but if you do not mind, if you're okay with you, I would like to invite you to join your family photo. Pop up your webcam if that's okay with you. And I'm going to take a photo from my screen. No pressure if you don't feel comfortable, but if you don't mind, I would love to get photos together. So please, yes. Okay, so I'm trying to see everyone's coming. Yeah, we get a good number. Yes, so I'm going to take maybe at least 2 photographs because there are 2 screens that covering these 28 colleagues. So let me take, for those who are not able to show the screen, that's okay. We see your name, we remember you, we know where you are. Smile. I need to see your smile. Yes. Okay, one more. I'm gonna do one more. Okay, good. This is another one. Also, another big smile, please. Big one, big one. Yes, yes. My friends, thank you so much. We're just about time. Really nice. Yeah, thank you. I want to thank our colleagues from different places. I want to thank Maddie. I want to thank Saya. I want to thank Jenna, who was in the background, working very hard to support us. Most importantly, I want to thank you all for your time and for your commitment. As the team, we love to hear you coming back again, and definitely, hopefully one day to hear you share with us some of your insight and experiences. That's it. I would like to invite for any one of us to close with a prayer. Anyone like to volunteer?
Imad, can I volunteer you?
Sure.
Thank
So is it
you.
a prayer? Okay. That's our Heavenly Father. We thank you for this opportunity here with all the colleagues, the hard work that went here. So thank you for everybody. At the end, this is us putting our work and our plans in your hand. We want to glorify your name in everything we do. We want to care and reach the people that you ask us to reach. We want to treat everybody equally, and then we want everybody to feel they are part of your kingdom. Thank you for everybody in the school, and as we go back to our work, give us the strength, the wisdom, and the rest that we need so we can serve everybody and show them that we serve a mighty God. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Wonderful. Thank you, friends.